Did you know Canada played a crucial role in the Korean War? When the United Nations called for help in 1950, Canada answered. Over 26,000 Canadians stepped up to defend South Korea, from the infantry on the front lines to Navy destroyers patrolling the coasts and Royal Canadian Air Force pilots flying vital missions. Their presence was felt everywhere. A defining moment was the Battle of CapCut. Outnumbered Canadian soldiers from the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry held their ground against immense pressure, a heroic stand that earned international respect. But it wasn't just about combat. Medics worked tirelessly to aid civilians, and pilots risked their lives escorting bombers and resupplying troops under fire. The war ended with an armistice in 1953, but not without a heavy cost. 516 Canadians made the ultimate sacrifice. Their service and sacrifice are not forgotten. It's a legacy that shaped Canada's military identity and a powerful chapter in our history. Did you know that over 70 years ago, a conflict on a peninsula half a world away helped shape the Canada we know today? We're talking about the Korean War, often called the Forgotten War, but its impact on Canada and on the lives of those who served is anything but forgettable. It all started in June 1950. The Cold War was heating up, and when North Korea invaded South Korea, the newly formed United Nations called on its members to help. Canada answered that call. It wasn't a simple decision, but the government believed in collective security, the idea that nations must stand together against aggression. This decision would send over 26,000 Canadians into a brutal conflict. The first to go were the Royal Canadian Navy's destroyers. Ships like the HMCs Cayuga, Ethebuscan, and Sioux were dispatched almost immediately. Their mission was dangerous: blockade enemy coasts, escort vital supply ships, and bombard onshore targets. Sailors faced constant threats from mines and enemy aircraft, all while enduring the harsh conditions of the Yellow Sea. They were Canada's first line of defense in a war far from home. Soon after, the Canadian Army's Special Force was authorized. Thousands of young men from all walks of life volunteered, many of them veterans of the Second World War. They formed the 25th Canadian Infantry Brigade. After rigorous training in the mountains of Washington State, which simulated the Korean terrain, they shipped out for the front lines. One of them was a young man. Let's call him Tom, a 25-year-old infantryman from a small town in Ontario. He, like many others, signed up feeling a sense of duty, leaving behind his family and a quiet life for the uncertainty of war. By early 1951, Tom and his fellow soldiers from the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, or PPCLI, were in the thick of it. The Korean landscape was unforgiving steep, rocky hills and brutally cold winters followed by sweltering, muddy summers. They lived in trenches and bunkers, facing a determined enemy in a war of attrition, fighting for every hill and valley. While the infantry held the line on the ground, the Royal Canadian Air Force played a crucial, though less visible, role. Canada didn't send fighter squadrons into direct combat, but it sent its best pilots to fly with the U.S. Air Force. Men like Jack Law, a 30-year-old fighter pilot from Alberta, found themselves flying F-86 Sabre jets in the infamous MiG Alley, engaging in high-speed dogfights with enemy fighters. It was incredibly dangerous work, requiring split-second decisions and nerves of steel. Back on the ground, the RCAF's 426 Transport Squadron was the lifeline. Flying unarmed North Star aircraft, they ferried troops, supplies, and mail from North America to Japan, the main staging area for the war. They also performed the grim but vital task of airlifting the wounded back home. These crews flew millions of miles, often under hazardous conditions, ensuring the frontline soldiers had what they needed to fight. The war wasn't just fought by soldiers and pilots. Canadian military nurses, part of the Royal Canadian Army Medical Corps, served with distinction. Let's imagine a nurse named May, a 28-year-old Chinese Canadian from Vancouver. She and her colleagues worked tirelessly in mobile army surgical hospitals or MASH units just miles from the front. They treated horrific wounds, battled disease, and provided comfort to wounded soldiers from all United Nations forces. But their compassion extended beyond the military. They often found themselves caring for Korean civilians caught in the crossfire, treating malnourished children and displaced families. Their work was a powerful symbol of humanity amidst the chaos of war. One of the most defining moments for Canada in the Korean War came in April 1951 at a place called CapCut. The Chinese military had launched a massive spring offensive, and the UN lines were buckling. The 2nd Battalion of the PPCLI, outnumbered and nearly surrounded on Hill 677, was ordered to hold its ground at all costs. For 2 days, the Canadians fought relentlessly. They called in artillery fire on their own positions to break up enemy assaults. Their heroic stand at the Battle of CapCut was a turning point. They held the line, preventing a major enemy breakthrough and saving the South Korean capital Seoul. For their incredible bravery, the battalion was awarded the United States Presidential Unit Citation, rare honor for a foreign unit. But the war wasn't just one big battle. For most soldiers like Tom, it was a daily grind of patrols, trench warfare, and skirmishes. They fought in places with names that would be forever etched in Canadian military history. Hill 355, also known as Little Gibraltar, and Hill 187. The conditions were brutal. They battled not just the enemy, but also frostbite, disease, and the constant psychological strain of combat. The bonds forged in those trenches were unbreakable, a brotherhood of shared hardship and sacrifice. For the Korean people, the war was a catastrophe. A civilian woman, let's call her Minjin, would have seen her village destroyed, her family torn apart. The war displaced millions, creating a massive refugee crisis. Canadians on the ground witnessed this suffering firsthand. Medics, like May, treated civilians whenever they could, and soldiers often shared their rations with hungry children. This humanitarian aspect of the mission left a deep impression on many Canadians who saw the human cost of the conflict up close. The war wasn't just about fighting, it was also about protecting innocent lives. After 3 long years of intense fighting and protracted peace negotiations, an armistice was finally signed on July 27, 1953. It wasn't a peace treaty, but a ceasefire. The war ended in a stalemate, with the border between North and South Korea remaining near the 38th parallel, right where it started. For the soldiers on the ground, the news was met with relief, but also a sense of emptiness. The war was over, but the division of Korea remained. The cost was high. 516 Canadians made the ultimate sacrifice and never returned home. Over 1,200 were wounded. For those who did come back, the return to civilian life was often difficult. The Korean War didn't have the clear-cut victory of World War II, and many veterans felt their service was overlooked. It became known as the Forgotten War because it was overshadowed by the conflict that preceded it and the Cold War tensions that followed. But its legacy is profound. Canada's participation solidified its reputation as a reliable international partner and a defender of peace and security. The war proved that Canada's military could operate effectively alongside its allies in a major international conflict. It also left a lasting mark on our national identity, reminding us that our peace and freedom sometimes require us to take a stand far from our own shores. Today, Canadian soldiers still serve in South Korea as part of the UN command, monitoring the fragile armistice. The names of the 516 fallen are inscribed in the Books of Remembrance in Ottawa and in a beautiful memorial garden in Busan, South Korea. The Korean War may have been forgotten by some, but for the veterans who fought there, for the families who lost loved ones, and for the Korean people who remember Canada's help, it is a chapter of history that will never fade. It's a story of courage, sacrifice, and a nation stepping up on the world stage. Thanks for watching. If you found this story meaningful, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more hidden histories. Your support helps us continue to tell these important stories. See you next time.